Good afternoon, everyone. It's Thankful Thursday here on Office Hours, and I have my mentor, the incredible Blaine Bartlett. Learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM, the unbelievable mindset mastermind man himself. Welcome, my friend. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really well. The sun is shining, the ocean is clear, and I've got two little puppy dogs running around the office right now. So life is good.
Well, we allow puppy dogs on Office Hours, so don't mind the barking. Candy. Welcome, Candy Valentino, entrepreneur and an author of Wealth Habits. And I'm a big habit machine person. I study every book written about habits because I think that's what we're made of. And there can't be a more suitable habit than one that incorporates wealth. And you define wealth as what, Candy?
Oh my gosh. Well, first, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. And, wealth to me is not just about the accumulation of money and things. And although that may be an unpopular opinion, to me, it's the truth. It's really using money to create what I believe everybody wants, which is freedom, to have time to do what you want, when you want, with whoever you want, as often as you want, and to really create a rich life that leads to contribution and giving back. And so that was something I learned on my journey, early 20s, having success and creating businesses and realizing that if this is all there is, that happiness is so fleeting. That feeling of dopamine hit that we're all after when we buy the thing is so short-lived, but really building a rich life is, I think, what everyone's truly after.
I love that. Yeah. The idea of freedom, people, yeah. There's a meme that I used to work with. Actually, it's a little process that I used to do. Want means experience. So you just kind of sit down with somebody and you just go through this cycle. What do you want? What means have you considered? What experience are you seeking? And you just kind of end up doing a deep dive going down. And all of a sudden you land on this place. And if you've done it well, all of a sudden there's this font of tears that begins to occur. And the whole point here is that money in particular becomes kind of a symbol of an experience that people really aren't necessarily connected to. And when that gets connected, things start to change. They start to transform. How did that connection happen for you?
So, interesting. I grew up super poor. I grew up in a trailer. My dad's a mechanic. My mom cleaned houses. They were teenagers, 16 and 19 when they had me. So I watched people work really, really hard. Life was more about survival than intention. And I just kind of got exposed to a little bit of personal development world in my teens and kind of hearing things for the first time, like that just because where we are doesn't mean that's where we have to go. Like to hear that for the first time, you're like, okay, well, that's cool. So I could get to choose where I want to go. And so I started my first company at 19 and set all these goals by the time I was 30, because that was so old when you're a kid, and accomplished a lot of those goals. And then when I realized I accomplished a lot of those goals, I thought, wow, is that it? Like, did I go through all of that? Did I overcome this abuse? Did I do all of this stuff to feel like this? And so there was such a disconnect with what I thought success and wealth was going to give me and what it actually did, which was kind of feeling empty. And so the shift became when I bought a building that I didn't know what to do with. I was investing in commercial real estate, and I got this prompting to start a nonprofit and to give back. And it was at a time where I was, working with franchising attorneys, and I was building out multiple locations and was going to expand and do all these things. And it was completely not in alignment with what my goals and dreams were, but yet it felt 100% congruent with what I was supposed to do. And so I started a nonprofit at 26, and we've gone on to save thousands of animals' lives and have at-risk youth programs for kids that are in the foster system or kids that are abused. And that's when it started to make sense. That's what this is all for. It's not just the accumulation of what we do. It's one, who we become in the journey, and then what we create out of it.
Yeah. And to that measure, when we talk about wealth habits and we talk about abundance, you have to understand values. And one of the things that I see, especially with younger people, is they don't understand the weighted balance that exists within the context of those values. So if we break it down to a quadrant system, like many people do, of personal values, experiential values, giving values, and receiving values, which is what you explained as financial freedom, being able to do what we want with what we want and who we want. that there is a natural progression and a prioritization of habits in order to effectuate what we're doing. So, for example, if I was in my 20s, or when I coach people in their 20s, I encourage them to weight those values according to where they are in their lives. That it's much more important to have, a receiving value over a giving value when it comes to your financial perspective. Or I would also suggest experiences have much more value than maybe some of the other things. Do you address, or how would you address a weighted balance for people? Because one size does not fit all. For Dave Meltzer and Blaine Bartlett, we have completely different steps for financial freedom or the wealth habits than a 22-year-old.
Yeah. And I think that it really depends where they are. Like, building wealth isn't just a one size fit all shoe that we all get to put on and it fits. Like, it really depends where someone is on their journey, because it's important for anyone to remember that whatever you believe or think about money right now was either caught or taught by someone else. So we really have to first fix, I'm not, a big just total all mindset, because there's a lot of tactics and implementation we have to do. The idea isn't going to make you wealthy. It's the implementation and execution of the idea that will. But we do have to fix a few things that you believe. Otherwise, we're all going to be swimming upstream together. And so I think that it's really identifying, like, what do you currently think or believe about money? What do we need to fix as far as the way you view it and the way you think about it, so that we can really get you to know that building wealth is playing the long game. Like, it's really about building on those small steps, because it is a habit. What you do with a little will dictate what you do with a lot. So if you're 22, just coming out of college, and you have your first job, as opposed to maybe getting signed by a professional team, and you all of a sudden get all of this money, if we don't fix your habits first, you're going to blow through all of that cash and have nothing at the end of it, which we see so often that happens when people come into money because they don't know how to manage it. So it's really understanding that wealth is also an amplification of who you are. Money is an amplification of who we are. So if we're a kind, giving person, when we have a little, we're just going to be able to be kinder and give more when we have a lot. But if it's something that we're blowing money when we have a little, and we don't develop the habits to really start to save your earned money so that you can invest in assets, well, then you're going to burn through all of that cash when you have more of it. So I think that obviously depending on where you are in your journey matters, and where you are in your life matters, because there's no greater joy in money, relationships, business than compounding interest. So the sooner that you can develop these habits, the better you're going to be when, you're our ages.
Yeah. With your new book, Wealth Habits, 6 Ordinary Steps to Achieve Extraordinary Financial Freedom. Yes, 6 steps. I mean, you said there's not one size that fits all, and I absolutely concur with that. And there are some fundamentals that we can actually pay attention to. So, in your book, what are the 6 ordinary steps? I mean, these are simple things. These are things that anybody can do at any stage in life. How would you?
Thing.
Yeah. What are they?
I always say, like, there was nothing about my journey that was extraordinary. Like, I had no reason to even be successful with my upbringing, but it's just doing the simple things over time, compounded, that give you extraordinary results. So the first is growing your way to wealth. And what that means, it's growing what's in your brain, like making sure that you're not using the law of the lid to your disadvantage, like making sure that you understand that there's always another level, that there's always another way that you have to grow your understanding about wealth, business, and life. And so it's really growing your way to more wealth is the first. The second, we dive into learning, like what you actually need to learn about money and finances, because we're not taught these things in school. So, it's why everyone's kind of in the same boat when they're in their 20s and 30s, unless they had some epicuric life that their parents taught them about wealth. We didn't pick up any of these things. So we need to learn what's true about money and investing. And then we really talk about, like, business and personal finance is kind of simple. You either earn more, spend less. So the third habit is really earning your way to more wealth, and why owning a business is, the Forbes 400 richest people in the world, 75% of them are on that list because they either own a business or their family owned a business. So it's a key identifier that 75% of all of the wealthiest have a business. And even if you don't want to quit your job, you too can start a business. And we break that down into the third habit. From there, it's saving, like understanding how taxes will be a great destroyer of your wealth if you don't understand taxes and how they work and how to let them, work for you, how to save and not overspend on, the $6 Starbucks and, blow money that you don't have and buy new cars. So we talk about all the just real core, like recession-proof ways that you can save. The fifth is really investing, like what to invest in and when, because everybody's level of investment, depending on what you have, is going to be different. So where do you start? Do you start with a Roth IRA? Do you start with ETFs? Do you start with, just kind of in breaking down actual investment strategies and styles so that you can know what type of investor you are? Because there's a real thing, guys. It's called debt stress syndrome. And people think that their pillow or their bed is what keeps people up at night, but it's debt. It's the greatest destroyer of marriages and relationships. And it's the greatest reason that we have anxiety and pain when we talk about finances. So we really dive into that in the fifth. And then the sixth is something that's important to me, is giving your way to wealth, and how true abundance is what you do with it, how you give it, how you can contribute, and actually how that makes you more wealthy. That's not the reason you do it. That's different. That's manipulation. But you give and you contribute, and how that actually brings so much more back to the richness of your life.
Candy, which just great advice. There's one aspect, just as a last question, and I'm even experiencing this, into my 50s, and you're looking at someone that, made over $100 million being financially illiterate and learned and had to relearn how to sustain wealth. But still today, there's an aspect that, I'd love your opinion or take on, which is the process of trusting and vetting people, because the only place that I lose money in stable investments or is when my trust and my vetting process fails me. And it's amazing to me. And I, even talking to my wife, I was like, I was very clear in the difficult questions. I was very clear in my due diligence. And yet I can't imagine this person lying like they did, which has resulted in a loss. And one of the advantages of making a shitload of money is that losses don't hurt as much when you get to write it off. And so you get that, well, it's 48% of what I really did. But more importantly, how can we, or what are some of the best techniques? And I think it's very important for people, athletes, celebrities, entertainers, or entrepreneurs, to learn truly how to trust and vet, because there is no sure process.
That's right. And I think it's one of the things I learned. I was 21 years old. I was in this guy's office, and he, to me, was one of the wealthiest people that I had known at that time. And he said, Candy, I want to tell you two things. No one will care about your money more than you. No one will ever care about your bottom line more than you. No one will ever care about your business more than you. And no matter how much wealth you have, I think that's a fundamental that we always have to remember. And so we put a lot of trust in people, but at the end of the day, it's still your business, still your money, still your checkbook. And the second thing is to always make sure that you still have eyeballs on that. Like, a lot of times people think they can hire and let go, but you have to be diligent about being on top of that, setting up a State of the Union meeting with yourself and your financial people, and making sure that you're not just getting reports, but that you're actually seeing bank reconciliations, that you're asking the right questions, and getting referrals from other people if you are going to trust someone or vet someone. Like, I think two things: people don't do the due diligence in the front to see who else did this person work for and really do a lot of research on them. And then it's trusting your gut. Like, I can tell you there's so many times I've been embezzled over the years and done all the right things, and problems still happen. So these are the parameters that we place, but things can still happen. And I knew there was something in my gut along the way that I knew, but I was too busy, too overscheduled, and I wasn't keeping a solid eye on my finances, and it happened. So it unfortunately still comes back to us. We're the ones that have to, make sure that we're setting up the systems and processes and doing double checks. And, one thing I do is no one signs my checks. I always make sure that I have eyeballs and I'm physically signing those checks, even at this level. So I think that it's important to remember that, because no one will care more than you do.
Yeah, whether they're family, friends, we see it historically, and
yes,
and also past success. I will tell you, one of the times in the last 10 years where I got burned was that, I let the past credibility of somebody determine the credibility of today. And
Mm.
so just because someone had 3 unicorns or whatever, you can't put, I mean, it's just amazing. Look who's ripping people off, you know, whether it was Madoff or FTX or, you know, these are very successful people that had all the credibility of the past in their favor. So I really appreciate you answering all of these great questions. The book is called Wealth Habits: 6 Ordinary Steps to Achieve Extraordinary Financial Freedom, including investment strategies, recession-proof stuff, keeping your money out of our IRS's hands, and more importantly, too, teaching our children about money, which is something, you know, I'm continually involved with 4 of my own. We'll have to have you back on candyvalentino.com. Candy Valentino, thanks for joining us on Office Hours.
Thank you so much for having me. Great seeing you guys.
Great conversation, Candy. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thanks
Same
for
to
your
you.
advice.
Merry Christmas.
Merry holidays. All right.
Hey, good
I
stuff.
love that name, Candy. I don't know
I
what it
do
is
too.
about it. It's so
Yeah.
sweet. Anyway, the most popular new name last year of all newborn boys was Noah.
Really?
And guess what we got? We got ourselves Noah. He's here with us. Noah Bob. Is it Bobit or Bobbot? Oh, you got to unmute. There we go, Matt. We at least we're consistent.
Oh,
Oh no, it's like a Muppet. It should be Noah Muppot, robot. Here,
Bullet.
put him back on. Have him mouth, and Blaine will
Oh,
give him the words. It'll be perfect. I'll ask him the question. You have him mouth it, and then Blaine will answer the question. We could play. What was Trump's game? The Apprentice, right? You're fired.
You're fired.
Let's bring Matt on. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll bring Matt on. We'll have Mobot, the robot, fire Matt, and we'll use Blaine's voice to do it. So I swear Noah was back there for like 10 minutes waiting to come on, and here he is. Anyway, it's fun.
It's good. It's all good here.
I want to get to that issue with you real quick, Blaine, because you know you, I am sure, have experienced the same thing, and my wife and I have been blessed to do extraordinarily well twice. Both times what had involved trusting and vetting, and the second time around, you know, we've lost in certain circumstances, but we haven't lost it all, and we're blessed to win more than we lose, which is a great advantage. But there's been a couple of situations where up front I manage expectations of my timing and risk tolerance, which is I have 0 risk tolerance. I don't care if I make 2% on my money. I just don't want to lose my money because I know myself. My superpower is to make money. I don't need my money making money. As much as everyone likes that stuff, I don't want to spend my time, emotion looking at the stock market, this market, that market. All I want to know is I'm guaranteed a return and I have no risk to lose my money. And the only 2 investments I've lost in the last 16 years are people who lied to me and told me, yes, no chance you could lose your money. And now I find out in this situation, I've lost my money.
Yeah. And those no chance. I mean, those 2 words, anytime I hear that or a version of it, flags go up, gongs go off. And then I get to really take a look at my risk tolerance. That whole vetting, trust but verify. I like Candy's position on this. I still sign all my checks. I mean, just as an example of that, but Cynthia and I both have trusted investments, and sometimes it's kind of like that went south and it shouldn't have gone south. What happened there? Because all the ducks seem to be lined up, except a couple of ducks were ducking their head, and all of a sudden it's kind of like it went off the rails. So I'm kind of with you. I mean, there's an attraction with, and this is kind of the investment strategy, have your money make money for you. Yeah, I understand that. And there's big killings are not a big, the risk on those things, if it's too good to be true, oftentimes it really is too good to be true. I'm in an investment right now that has got so much potential upside. And the promise on it was, and it's a med tech thing, was pretty substantial in the conversation, and it's kind of like, we're going to be lucky to break even on this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because I am very firm on a few things: timing and risk tolerance and knowing it up front, and then perceived value and bottom line. And I'm okay, and I work in percentages before the year. So right now, I have percentages locked into everything: giving, food, travel. It's just percentages. So now I'm motivated to make it easy on myself by making more money, and that percentage provides a net quantifiable gain of much more. I got way more to spend on food, on travel, on charity, etc. Or I'm going to have to, cut back if I don't mow. So that's the motivation behind it. But interesting enough, part of that predetermined timing and risk tolerance to me is to acknowledge the risk, meaning I have a certain percentage that says I'm buying the lottery ticket, right? I'm going to invest in a lottery ticket because I find it exciting and fun and something to talk about it. But it's a very little percentage of, what I'm going to do, which that's inversely related to what it used to be is, when I was young, what the heck? I know I can always make money. Who cares if I lose it all? Which usually is an indication you're going to lose it all if you don't care if you lose it all.
Oh, yeah. I go to Vegas. How much can I afford to lose? And that's about how much I would lose every
Exactly. The Parkinson law applies to that as well.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's so interesting because, I really have pushed people in this trust and vet. And part of trusting, Blaine, which I think, I love your insider, philosophy on, I think by asking uncomfortable, hard questions or making uncomfortable statements when it comes to money is a form of trust. That I trust our friendship so much that I'm just going to tell you the truth about it. I'm not going to wiggle my way around it. I'm going to say to you, you told me this made 300%. Well, how much did you make last year? Oh, $3? Because you sure made it seem like it was 3 million that made 300%. And why would you do this for me? Julie, when I made my big investment, that was one of the catalytic events or incidences that made me lose $100 million. Julie said to me, why would he do this for you? Right? The big lawsuit I got into, that doesn't make any sense. It's too good to be true. And why would he be helping you do this? Why wouldn't he just do it himself? And I let my trusting not understand that true trusting means, hey, if you really trust me, then trust me to ask me everything.
Yep.
And make me feel uncomfortable and go ahead and feel that way.
Yeah, I think there's two pieces to that you bring in. And one is, trusting the solidity of the relationship enough that, it's still going to be standing if I ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
But I think more importantly, and this is more importantly in the context of trust is usually attributed to, I trust the other. I trust this process. I trust, so it's an externalization. What I'm really talking about with trust in the way that I actually find it workable is I trust myself to handle the consequence of being direct and open and honest. I trust myself to handle the consequence of making that investment or that move, whatever it might be. And if I don't trust myself to handle the downside, that's, because most vetting takes place externally. I want to vet myself.
And that's true in friendships. I found myself as I got older, even telling my daughters, well, if they were really a friend, they wouldn't say, I'm not going to be your friend because that happened.
Exactly.
Right. And like I had that with one of my real estate things. And, we know so many different realtors, and we found our beach house off market. And one of our close friends was like, I can't believe you didn't use me. We're not. I'm like, oh, well, I guess we weren't friends. If that's going to determine our friendship, that I offered you to be my real estate agent, then we weren't friends.
We weren't friends. Yeah.
And that's the trust that we're talking about. All right. So the most popular name last year was Noah. And the first question I had is, how do I pronounce your last name? How do I pronounce your last name, Noah?
Noah Bobot.
Oh, I got it right. Bobot the robot, and we can hear him. That's
Exactly.
awesome. I've asked my team, which is why we don't have to mock it. I've asked my team again and again to make sure I have the pronunciation of names there, which, by the way, doesn't guarantee I'm going to still do it right. So many times my eyes are bad or I move too fast, but I love that. Noah Bobot, president of Standard Oil Credit Holding Company, and in a very important position in a very important industry today as a nurse practitioner service and enabling so many different things today. How did you get into this space as president of Standard Oil Credit Holding Company?
So actually about 10 years ago, I started seeing some distressed properties in and around Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, just overgrowing weeds and that nature. And I just started researching, and I ended up finding some guy that lived in Indonesia that didn't even know he had the property anymore. This is, when I was, I don't know, I must have been 19 or 20. And he was like, oh yeah, I can't come back to the United States. Like, sell my property for me. I said, okay. I got really lucky. I made a phone call, and somebody ended up buying a piece of real estate for $3 million that was worth about 6 or 7. And I just said, let me go for it again. And I drove around town, and I found the next house that had weeds overgrowing and it looked a little bit abandoned. And I found another similar property and had a similar story to it. And around that time, I was going to school. I was going to university. And I got a call from a fund manager that heard about these 2 deals and said, why don't you start sourcing distressed debt for me? So that's how I kind of fell into the business. It was luck and a little bit of hustling mentality that allowed me to get into that.
That was a better answer than I expected. It was awesome.
So much for master plans.
Yeah. I know.
So
But yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, that's serendipitous, kind of flow, just kind of stepping into the flow and paying attention. The whole idea of noticing something and then leveraging what I'm noticing. If it's in my awareness, it's there for a reason. So how can I actually move something forward with what I'm noticing? And and that leads me to this next question here: wait times in medical exams, that sort of a thing. Your other company, Qualify. Talk a little bit about that, because there's a pinch point, and I'm talking about this because I just came back from the doctor's office last week, and it was kind of like this onerous experience of waiting,
Right.
waiting for this, waiting for that, waiting to get scheduled.
Exactly.
What did you notice that you were able to say, I've got a solution here?
So Qualify stands for Qualified Physicians on Demand to qualify your patients. What we noticed is that there's a super long wait time for doctors' offices because people with physician's assistant licenses or nurse practitioner licensing is a very high salary. It's not easy for any practice to just maintain that level in order to meet, you don't know what kind of traffic you're going to be having. So you may have a day where you're overloaded and you're just waiting in line in the doctor's office for somebody to come and screen you. And so what we noticed is that these nurse practitioners and these physician's assistants can actually be taking these calls virtually on behalf of the clinics that you're visiting. And a lot of the reasons why they're even there is strictly for compliance purposes. The questions that they're going to ask you are pretty, I'm talking specifically for medical spas and wellness clinics. They're going to ask you some pretty basic and easy questions, but from a compliance and legal perspective, it needs to be a nurse practitioner, which can be, expensive, and it could take a lot of time that's unnecessary for the practice and for the nurse practitioners to be there.
It's amazing in telehealth, and especially during COVID, we found all types of waste. And, part of that too is your participation in the billing aspect. And I imagine with your experience of debt, that there's probably more debt that's accumulated because of medical services and in needs than any other, even more than real estate probably. So what are some of the critical business issues with debt, and what are you guys doing to alleviate that as well?
Well, are you asking the question in terms of Qualify or in terms
Yeah.
of Oh,
In
okay.
qual-
Yeah, great. In terms of qualify, we're actually not billing insurance. We're not even billing the patients. The practices don't really need to have nurse practitioners on payroll anymore. It's kind of just a pay-per-click, and it actually saves the practices tons of money because they don't need that huge salary on payroll just to screen people. It's just done, it's direct into their EMR. The client's happy, the patient's happy, the clinic's happy, and the nurse practitioner can work from anywhere. So it's mostly private for the time being. We're right now, we don't have we're going to get into medical billing, but right now as a service, it's not something that we're actively pursuing at this moment.
Which is really surprising because of your background, but I find it interesting because you're such an open-minded entrepreneur. You probably are just maximizing and prioritizing opportunity, which I really respect. So very, very, very interesting. Blaine, you got a last question for us?
Well, it seems disparate. I mean, you've got the real estate side, and then you've got this qualify side. How are you, in your mind, how do you merge the two?
Well, good question. The first thing is that I have an amazing team, a really, really, really amazing team. And I think that with distressed debt and real estate, there's hundreds of moving parts. And within the telehealth field as well, you're dealing with people all over the country. You're dealing with people nationwide. And in terms of them converging, there's not really much overlap in this kind of field that allows you to kind of, merge two like congruent lines that allow you to get economies of scale. They really are their own animals, but I'm really keeping my eyes open and hoping that there will be some form of, mix. But for the time being, there's not really much that I'm seeing that's that way.
Okay, so you got two separate houses that you're actually tending to right now. Okay,
exactly.
Which one has more upside as we finish up?
Qualify, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's the best for the world.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on. We'll have you back with more time next time. We'll get a better staff in here to help you with the technology to make sure that we can hear you. Maybe we'll bring on a Noah robot and a Noah Bobot. We'll utilize AI to effectively communicate both businesses to us. Noah Bobot, he's the president of Standard Oil Credit Holding Company. Qualify is phy.me, qualify.me. Check them out. It's the most efficient, effective way to screen ourselves so that everybody wins, the patient, the practitioners, as well as the billing, it sounds like. So thanks so much, Noah. Please join us soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. All right. Well, Matt better not screw this one up because this is one of the most important people that I know, and probably even more important person for Blaine. And there she is, the incredible Cynthia Kersey, CEO of the Unstoppable Foundation, something that's extremely close to Blaine and my hearts. And so is Cynthia. Welcome to Office Hours, Cynthia.
Good to see two of my favorite men in the whole world. Handsome, handsome.
Oh, thank you. Well, you are not only an incredible author, speaker, entrepreneur yourself, but you're the chief humanitarian officer.
CEO. I changed. I'm not the humanitarian officer anymore.
You are just straight out corporate CEO. Once again, once again, my team is just it's a rough day for Team Meltzer on the notes. But we're on Monday. We're having a first. And it's one of my favorite firsts because we are reconciling a lesson that I learned from you years ago. We're reconciling this pragmatic business money world with giving and understanding, how giving works. And we're doing an Unstoppable Success seminar, and it's about boosting your sales and skyrocketing your business through giving. Yeah. And it's on Monday, December 19th. At 4 p.m. Pacific time, which will be approximately, it's almost 4 o'clock now, this time of the day. But is in a book behind you indicates there is, Blaine, by the way, Compassionate Capitalism with Cynthia and my wife have never read, but it is amazing.
Hey, that's not true.
I'm just kidding. I love this. I love this so much. But Cynthia, I'm going to ask the first question, because you helped me with this, because I was very giving oriented, which meant it was transactional like business. It was giving to receive. The more that I could give, the more I could get. It was conditional. It was prejudice, meaning that there was prejudgments and conditions combined.
Yeah.
And you taught me how to be unstoppable in my success by being unconditional in my giving and receiving. I was hoping maybe you could share that lesson of the relationship between giving and receiving that changed my life.
Oh, that's so beautiful, David. I love that because you're such a big giver. And when people move from transaction, Bob Proctor used to always say, it's if you're giving and you want an outcome, it's trading. And there's nothing wrong with trading, but there's a higher level vibration of which when you give with no attachment, there's something that really it shifts, I think. And it's not that we're giving the money away, it's going to be recycled and it comes back to us. So when you give just because you want to give and you feel inspired to give. And I think that's the key because so many people feel depleted. It's like when we talk about being a force for good or giving, it's like, oh my gosh, I give to my family. I'm giving all the time. I'm exhausted. The key thing is to find where's your inspiration? Where are you inspired, of spirit? And that energizes you and it gives you a reason to live and a reason to contribute even more because you feel more alive.
I love that.
Yeah, I love having you on the show here, babe.
Thanks, honey.
And for those of you that are listening and don't know, she is my wife. I am her husband. And you have taught me probably more about the nature of giving. As a matter of fact, that was ultimately the catalyst for us coming together 12 years ago. I saw you up on stage at a program that you and I were both invited to speak at. And what you were talking about, the nature of gratitude, the nature of giving, I had never heard talked about in the way you were talking about it. And it just rocked my world. I mean, it really did. It's kind of like I hadn't put the dot together or the dots together in that way. And it's completely transformed my life in terms of the quality of the living that I'm doing. And that's in part because I'm living with you, but just the quality of the living. And, you've heard me say this more times than you can probably stand any longer, but there's
Are you talking to me or Cynthia?
No, both of you probably on this one. But nature is probably my greatest teacher. And there's nothing.
Hey, say it again.
Nature's my best teacher. And I was taking a walk out the other day and just noticing, there's nothing in nature that serves as a center of accumulation. Nothing in nature serves as a center of accumulation. Everything eventually becomes a center of distribution. And it's that energy, that cycle of renewal, that cycle of reciprocity that's always in place. And it begins with the giving. It begins with the giving. It's that outflow that catalyzes something else moving. And I remember, Bob Proctor a long time ago telling both of us at one point in time, I think either together or certainly individually, I give the money. I don't care if people put it in the backyard and bury it in a hole. It's the giving that I'm concerned with. That lack of attachment doesn't mean I'm not concerned about the outcome, but that lack of attachment. You've had mentors in your life, and there is a question embedded here. You've had mentors in your life that you've learned this whole thing from. What would have been probably the catalyst for you to, that really said this giving with gratitude, without attachment, is the way that the universe works? Where did that land for you?
It's such a good question. It started with Millard Fuller, founder of Habitat, when I built those houses, and that was the first major paradigm shift. But then over and over with Bob, and now with Mary. Mary is really now my model. Now I keep upping my game of how I'm inspired to give.
Now this is Mary Morrissey.
Mary Morrissey. You can't outgive Mary Morrissey. It's like, and her life is so full and is so prosperous. And it's just like, and you feel like you're left with an impression of increase, whether you're the driver or you're, just around her. And so she has inspired me to give at that next level, taking the kids on vacation. I mean, whatever it looks like, it's, however I can help, I'm just even more inspired, because you know what? I really am the receiver. It's like, if you want more joy, more passion, more purpose, more meaning in your life, it comes through the act of giving without attachment. When you have attachment, that again, it's like you're going to give, and it's like, how many people do you know that have given to family members, or they're helping someone, but you need to use the money for this.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates sometimes a resentment, judgment. But when you give with an open heart, I have a very quick story that kind of explains this. Cammie Walker, she was at the top of her game. She had just gotten married, came back from her honeymoon, and her business is doing great. And she woke up one morning and her right arm wouldn't work. And so she went to the doctor. After a series of tests, she was diagnosed as having multiple sclerosis. And for the next 2 years, her life went downhill. And she was upset and she was angry. And a friend who's a spiritual teacher went and visited her in the hospital. And she says, Cammie, she said, I feel you. I know you're going through a hard time, but you've got to stop thinking about yourself and your problem. And Cammie's like, are you serious? Can't you see? I'm in the hospital. I don't feel like, what do I have to give anymore? And the teacher said, her name was Mabali. She said, yeah, that's the problem. You're focused on yourself. And so I want to give you a prescription for 30 days. I want you to give a gift away, one gift a day for 30 days. And Cammie's thinking, what do I have to give? And she said, you can give a prayer, you can give a kind word, you can give a smile, but do it with no attachment. And so Cammie thought, well, I can't lose, right? What am I going to lose, right? So the first day that she thought, well, what could I do? And her friend also has multiple sclerosis, and her friend's husband was out of town. And she thought, I'll just call my friend and, cheer her up. And she's by herself. After the conversation, she noticed that her spirits were lifted. Each day she looked at, what's one little thing that I could do? Maybe it's writing a note. Maybe it's a smile. Again, maybe it was a prayer. Within a week, she's starting to feel better. Within 2 weeks, she was able to walk without her cane. And she kept, and she just kept giving. And again, from a way of being inspired in the moment, no attachment. At the end of the 30 days, she wanted to do something big. And she and her husband took a mile walk, which before she started this would have been completely impossible. This is the key to this story. Did she still have multiple sclerosis? Yes. But she found her meaning. She found her joy. She realized she had something to contribute, and that changed her life. So that's just one little story. We've got business stories. We've got little nuances, ways that you can, give in a way that not only inspires you, changes other people's lives, but makes you a magnet for good. That's what I feel like happens. We become a magnet for good that we can give to more people.
And just to finish up, I know we're having the upcoming event on Monday, and I want everyone to reach out. The link's right here below. You can email me, david@dmeltzer.com, to sign up. It's free. The Unstoppable Success Sales and Boost Your Sales and Skyrocket Your Business. It's Monday at 4 p.m. This coming Monday, the 19th. But one of the nuances that I find so interesting that I study is this idea of asking. Mm-hmm. And I was someone who had an extreme difficulty in asking for help, for charity, to give. And through a similar circumstance, not one of always giving, because I always would give and understood that side of it, I didn't understand how asking someone for help, asking someone to give, was actually giving.
Right.
Itself. Mm-hmm. And it was a huge paradigm shift for me.
That's right.
When you asked me to give, and you shifted my paradigm and said, can I give you a gift? And I said, sure. Well, I'd like you to help me with this, and can you donate this, and can you do this for me? And I'm thinking the first time you said, I'm like, what the heck is Cynthia talking about? She's giving me a gift.
She's spoken.
And then I realized from the story you just told, what a great gift that healer, that wise woman gave her
Right.
friend. She
That's
gave her
right.
the gift of life. She
That's
gave her the
right.
gift of love. She
Mhm.
gave her the gift of these lessons that saved or prolonged her life, because there was no life as she lied there in her own self. And now she lives there and lied there in her one self, the oneness of everything. How can you share real quickly before we go about asking and how important
Yeah.
it is to ask for help and to ask people to give?
Well, it's interesting because people can't experience their own prosperity if they don't give, right? So it's like you can be a billionaire, and if you're holding on to it for dear life and like Scrooge and you don't want to give it to anybody, you're not living a rich life. So when we understand the law of giving and receiving, that it's a law, it's a universal law, just like the law of gravity. As you give, there's even a scripture that says, as you give, see if I will not open up the floodgates of heaven and pour upon you such a blessing you cannot contain it. So as we give, when I'm giving somebody, when I'm inviting people to be a part of the Unstoppable Foundation, I know I'm giving them an opportunity to experience their own prosperity and to really activate that receiving in their life. So, one way of looking at it is by not acting, I'm depriving them of the blessing
Yep.
of giving. This is the key. When we ask, we can't be attached to them saying yes or no.
Yep.
How many times have you've been asked before, David? And it's like they're asking you for money and you don't feel like you've got an option, right? It's like they're trying to guilt you in it or whatever. That doesn't feel good. But when you ask with an open heart, understanding, I really am giving you an opportunity to be blessed. If you do, fine. If you don't, that's fine. But once we get that, it shifts our own paradigm. And that's when I became a much more powerful fundraiser, because I knew I wasn't really asking for me. I was really asking for them.
Yep.
And the same holds true in business, which we're going to discuss about articulating a quantitative value to exceed what you're asking for. And in the giving sense, that's what we do when we ask for that acknowledgement, because the only way we can acknowledge what we have is not to have it anymore. And that's part of giving as well, to acquire the knowledge. Like you said, as a billionaire, we don't know what we have until we've lost it or given it away. And thank you so much. One of the world's leaders of giving and receiving, one of my dear friends and the wife of my dear friend, the Unstoppable Foundation CEO, the Unstoppable Success Story. Come join us on Monday, December 19th, this next Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Learn how to boost your sales, skyrocket your business by understanding giving and receiving. And I'm just so grateful to have both of you here with me today and in our lives, and there with me on Monday as well, to empower others, to make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. We'll see you soon, Cynthia. Thanks for joining us.
Love you both. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Bye.
Awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, I'm glad that Matt didn't screw that one up, except for the chief humanitarian officer. I've seen notes already. It's CEO of Unstoppable Foundation. Join us on Monday, everybody. Please,
Yeah.
Blaine Bartlett, learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM, the Mindset Mastermind. Please give me your takeaway of the day.
Freedom.
Wow.
Just go with candy. What people are looking for when they're creating wealth is the experience of freedom. And when I go to the doctor's office, I want freedom from time. I don't want that constraint boxing me in. And Cynthia, I mean, the idea of just giving without attachment, it frees me up in so many ways to actually experience what life is about. And life is about being just the center of distribution. I mean, honest to God, that's what it's about. It really is. And if I put myself in that position, life is going to rock pretty well. Lena Horne, the dancer, said it's not how did she put it? It's not the load that breaks us down, it's the way we carry it. And when you think about how we carry the loads in life, we get attached to them, like the story that Cynthia shared. I got attached to my disease. It's my MS. Carry it freely, carry it with light touch, and don't be attached to it. And life seems to work at that point in time. There's a lot of freedom in that.
I love it. My reminder, a recollection, and the remembrance that I have, or the takeaway that I had today, was money's energy, and it is energy. Therefore, it's in the flow like anything else. And so, Candy made it quite clear what creates the freedom is your relationship with that energy. Noah has utilized that energy in a variety of different ways, and I love the beginning story, which was just a fantastically surprising answer to a question I thought that was like, wow, talk about a guy who had a great relationship with the energy of money. And then, my mentor, someone who shifted the paradigm in my relationship with money in such a dramatic way, Cynthia, and now both of us sharing that experience with others on Monday, December 19th at 4 p.m. to teach people to be unstoppably successful in their business and boost sales and skyrocket their relationship with money, to be in the flow, to be a center of distribution, as my other mentor, Blaine Bartlett, has suggested and taught me over these years. I want to thank everyone for joining us, but especially my friend, Blaine Bartlett. Join him. He's starting a new mastermind in January. Learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM. I will see you on Monday.
Absolutely.
At the success stories there, and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, buddy. Love you.
Love you. Talk to you soon. All right, everyone. Easy Japanese. You are only one thought away from being at ease. Just remember that. Just one thought, one word, one action, one belief, one feeling away. Just one thought away from being at ease. Make that thought. All right, everyone. You can join me. Please email me if you want to join us on Monday. Matt has pinned this up here. Oops. David@dmeltzer.com. David@dmeltzer.com. Most importantly, be more interested than interesting. Be kind to your future self and do good deeds. We will see you tomorrow and on Monday at 4 p.m. Peace. Take care.